Hi, I'm Belinda, the Director of the Institute of Personal Care Science, and I get asked a lot of questions about mineral foundations. So today I'm going to show you how they're put together. Here is the product I'm going to be showing you how to make today. As you can see, it's a nice loose powder. Now I'm showing you how to make a loose powder foundation today because a pressed powder is actually a lot more involved. I will mention some things along the way, the differences between making a loose powder and a pressed powder. But with pressed powders, you need to consider issues of glazing. You need to do additional tests like drop tests, use tests, to make sure the product will come out of the container throughout its entire use but not flake or chip out too early. And then of course there's additional issues of making it feel nice on the skin and getting good colour payoff. So for this video we're going to make a very simple loose powder product that still has fantastic coverage, feels great, looks great, and even has a bit of highlighter in it. Now, one of the tricks when we're making a loose powder, or any mineral foundation for that matter, is we start with these rather chalky raw materials. So one of the things we need to do is grind them up because these are absolutely chalky and terrible when applying them to the skin. So you will see me grind these today in even just a lab size scale. In full scale production, we use a machine called a hammer mill. But what I've done here is I've actually pre-measured the materials I'm going to be using. So in here I have my titanium dioxide and I have my mica. Now my mica is a reasonably clear powder material and this makes up the bulk of the product. I'm going to add to this my pre-measured iron oxides. We need to grind these up. And then I'm also going to add my binder. Now this powder is very important. This is magnesium stearate. You can also use zinc stearate. This particular material is going to help the mineral foundation stick to my skin. Now we don't want to use too much because we are creating a loose powder product here. In a pressed powder, we would use more of this binding material and that helps bind the powders into the compact. Now when you're making a pressed powder, another issue you have is the machinery. What works for the compression rate in a lab can vary significantly when you go to production. So another reason why if you're a small producer, I'm recommending you stick to the loose powder foundations unless you conduct more study to learn how to adapt and manipulate your pressed powder formulation to get it just right. So I've combined all of these and now I'm going to grind them up to get a really fine particle size. And then we tip this into our bowl. Now in production we would be conducting the next steps in a ribbon blender. To this we are going to add our lipid. Now we use long spreading and wetting lipids, very light materials generally. And I'm also going to add my highlighting or shimmer material. Now there's all sorts of shimmer materials you can get. You can get white pearlescent effects. I'm using a bronzed pearlescent effect here. Depends on the skin tone of your user as to which sort of pearlescent effect you would go for. Now again, in production we would use a ribbon blender at this step to make sure we get homogeneous mixing. Now I'm using the ribbon blender or simple stirring at this step because one of the things that helps these highlighting materials work is that beautiful shimmer. It's actually mica or other colorants coated, and if we put these through high shear, if I was to grind them, I would actually break that coating. So you would lose all of that reflective effect. So again, here is a white highlighting material and you can see it has a beautiful shimmer effect, a nice pearlescent white, which is great if you're trying to highlight a whitening effect in a product. This material here, like I say, we're going for a bit of a bronzing look. And you can see that beautiful shine that it gives to the product. So if I was to grind these highlighting powders, I would lose that pearlescent shimmer. I would lose that highlighting effect. So we never put our pearlescent materials through high shear or grinding. We only ever put them through ribbon blending or more gentle mixing. Otherwise we'll lose that beautiful luster, which is what we want. And once we've mixed that thoroughly, we have our finished product. If I made that look rather easy, it's because making a loose mineral powder generally is. But there's some additional things you need to know when you're creating your products. Of course, you can contact us for this free formulation and method. We're happy to provide this to you, and it's a starting point for whatever you create. But you then need to adjust it. Now, obviously, you need to adjust the color to match different skin tones. We've got some basic color matching videos you might find useful, or again, you might want to learn this in more detail from us. Just contact us. We're happy to provide you information about that more detailed training. But in the meantime, as you saw, we have yellow, red, and black that you can adjust in different quantities to give you varying amounts of beige. But before you even get to the color matching step, you really need to determine how much opacity or coverage you want in your formula. To show you what I mean, I have prepared different levels of coverage in products. In this particular version, I have got 12% of a titanium dioxide, and you can see it's very opaque. It covers a lot. And then in this sample I just made, I have 9% of titanium dioxide, and you can see it still gives good coverage, but you can see through it a little more. So one of the first things you need to decide is how much coverage or opacity you need your product to provide. When you have BB creams, for example, they tend to have more of a moderate or medium coverage, sometimes lighter than that. Tinted moisturizers don't have much coverage at all, and of course your high cover foundations have a lot of coverage, and they'll cover all of your freckles or blemishes. So one of the first things you need to do with the formula is decide how much coverage you want, and that will then alter how much zinc oxide or titanium dioxide you have in your formula. And yes, this does give the amount of whiteness that you then need to cover with iron oxides. So obviously the more coverage your formula has, the more whiteness in the base, the more iron oxide you're going to need to use. And yes, the more coverage you have from zinc oxide and titanium dioxide, the more SPF protection you'll also have. Just remember, zinc oxide is a full broad spectrum protection, but any SPF claims need to be substantiated with appropriate testing before you make the claim. Now, once you've determined the opacity, you can then adjust your zinc oxide or titanium dioxide content in your formula. But you can't color match yet, again. Now, in the example formula that I have for you, I've just created quite a nice beige. And we generally start with a general beige, so we can check things like the way the product feels, the way it spreads, the way it adheres to the skin, and that is from the magnesium stearate or zinc stearate if you use that. And also the esters impact the skin feel. They can impact the end color, but they also help with some of that binding or adherence to the skin. Once you've set the lipid content, and I've kept it quite low in this loose mineral powder because you don't need a high lipid content, you would manipulate that with a pressed or baked powder, then you need to decide on your effect. So what we do is we start with the basic beige product. We set the opacity. We're still not color matching. We're still happy to work with the formula with its general beige look, because now we need to get that highlighting, shine or luster effect just right. So let's say now we're happy with our coverage, we're happy with our skin feel, we're happy with how it adheres to the skin. Now we want to pick up on that highlighting effect. As you saw here, I used a bit of a bronze highlighter. Now I only used 5% and this gives a general glow to the product, makes my skin look nice and healthy and even complexion. If you want a really shiny, lustrous product, you'd use more of this highlighting material, 12 or 15% even, if you want that pearlescent effect to come through. You generally need some highlighting material, otherwise the end product can look very flat and matte on the skin. If you want to give a healthy glow to the product, it's best to use around 5% of a highlighting material. And again, as you saw, I used a bronze highlighting effects pigment, but you can use white or silver toned pigments if you want to have more of a white or pearlescent finished effect in your product. Once you're happy with your beige powder, the coverage, the skin feel, the adherence to the skin, and that highlighting effect, then you can finally start color matching. And what we're best to do there is get samples of product in the market of colors that you like. Now the end color of your formula and exactly how much red, yellow or black you need in your formula will differ depending on your base. We've already talked about how we could use titanium dioxide, we could use zinc oxide, we could use a combination of both. We can alter our pearlescent or highlighting material, and altering that ester or lipid can also impact the final color. So you need to get all of those elements of your formula right and set before you start color matching, because if you change any one of them, it will dramatically change the color that you see in the end product. So we don't color match until we've got all of those other elements finalized. Then you can adjust the yellow, red and black input to get various shades of ivory, beige, even tanner looks. For darker skin, you reduce the titanium dioxide or zinc oxide content significantly, and you increase the iron oxide content to give darker shades. Color matching takes time. It is not a simple process of just adding more beige. It is varying combinations of yellow, red and black, and it takes someone with a good eye to be able to color match on different skin tones. Please allow the time it takes to do your color matching. And if you're not able to discern really fine shades in color, find someone who can do that step for you, because it does take a good eye to make sure you get the color right and matched to certain shades. Now, once you've done your color matching, you can then start to upscale. This sample here, for example, is just 10 grams. We don't tend to make 100 gram samples of powders at the start, otherwise we'd go through huge amounts of materials and need much larger equipment in the lab. So we start small, then we need to do scale up steps. You need very accurate scales to 0.001 gram resolution in the lab. And as you scale up your formula, going to larger batches, you need to check and double check that the accuracy of your colors doesn't alter as your batch size gets bigger. Finally, you pack off your product using an auger filler. This helps make sure the right amount of powder gets dispensed into the jars every time, and it's a lot better than creating dust by filling by hand. So while I made it look very simple to create the base product, there's a lot more involved when it comes to color matching each of the shades. We have this base formula available for you absolutely free, but remember to work on it and color match to the shades you need. I hope you enjoyed this video presentation. Like I said, I get asked a lot about mineral foundations, so I hope this has given you a good starting point. But with all color products, proper training really is required to get a quality end product, especially if you want to start creating pressed or baked powders and various other color cosmetics as well. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please leave any questions or comments below. Contact us for the free formula. We're happy to provide it to you. And please make sure you subscribe to get notifications about all our videos. Happy formulating!